what kind of city would I like my daughter to live in? Well, I'd like her to live in a city a lot like Portland, where we have the infrastructure for bicycles, we have more and more public transportation going in, we've got an urban growth boundary that tries to limit sprawl and creates incentives for the kind of redevelopment that this house represents. Want her to live in a city with neighborhoods where she can walk around. And I think that that's the kind of city, hopefully, that she is going to grow up in.
If we fail to understand how we're changing, what the costs and consequences are, we're going to waste time, money, and effort, and we're going to saddle people with a community, with an environment, with a transportation system that doesn't meet their needs tomorrow, let alone a century from now.
I think that it's absolutely imperative for our generation and the generations going forward to really understand the concept of ecosystem preservation. The resources, our natural resources, are priceless. And unless we create a world in which we put a price on the priceless, our future is uncertain.
So the biggest hurdle is the economy, or the economics of a particular project. Whether the economy is doing well or it's not doing so well, it's always going to be whether or not the technology or the design or the systems that you want to incorporate into the project actually are going to make sense financially. This is the Life Breath Clean Air Furnace, which has the built-in heat exchanger, which is exchanging the fresh air from the outside with the stale air from the inside and providing heat for the house. This is the solar hot water tank, which is connected to the panel on the roof, which circulates a fluid.
Someone once called me a green architect, and I think they missed on both fronts. A, I'm not an architect. B, doing green work isn't at the fore of what I do. But I wouldn't not do green work. I wouldn't do ungreen work, if that's a strange way of saying that I like doing green work. It's the right thing to do. I couldn't imagine working in an industry like this, where commercial buildings have such a large impact on global warming. I couldn't imagine not doing a compelling building, a building that made or pushed the envelope to make our society and our region and our world a better place. I don't look for the big firms and the big developers specifically to roll out the experimental projects. It's going to be projects like this that then inform the larger projects, and they can pick and choose what they like. I don't mind being on the bleeding edge, because I know that if I don't do it, the big guys aren't, and we're not going to push the envelope in that same way.
The greening of me has happened specifically because of my relationship to this building and to Kevin. Opportunities present themselves because people come to us thinking that we are concerned about that sort of stuff. And as much as I'd like to say I actively pursued this building and my relationship with Kevin because I had a pre-existing kind of green mentality, that's not the case. I have been greened by my association with this building. It does make business sense. Whether or not it makes business sense on a bottom line question remains to be seen, but whether or not it makes business sense in terms of making us more attractive to local consumers, that's undeniable. Well, I think that the green sort of revolution, or green as a symbol, has become a value add for people. And I think that they like to patronize businesses that they think are operating with sustainable practices. Now, sustainable, forgive me for using that word because I think it's loaded and kooky and resists definition because it has so many. But if you can show to your patrons that you are green, that you're concerned with your footprint, then that makes them more likely to patronize your business.
If you come from the climate change, global warming aspect, clearly those people that are looking at the resource constraints that we face see that the built environment needs to approach a sustainability level if we are able to sustain a housing stock that makes sense without impinging on our natural resources. If you look at it from the builder's perspective, or perhaps the non-tree hugger perspective, what we're actually talking about is building houses that work. And we term those high performance homes, but actually they're just homes that are durable, comfortable, and are cost effective to operate. And so depending on where you come from, we talk about the value proposition to each one of the stakeholders. And so sustainability is important depending on which audience that you're actually reaching out to. Sustainability is not a luxury for some high strata population sector of America. What we really need to do is focus on good building, with high performance, proper home building for all the strata. And in that way, if we can step back after that and say all strata of the population have access to high performance homes that are comfortable, then I would say we are addressing the social equity issue. What we really need to be careful about is that if we impose certain thresholds of performance in buildings, which the mainstream population, middle to upper income, can adhere to, and ignore the lower strata, then we are not doing social equity any justice.
Whether it's being sustainable in terms of being able to cope with the energy demands, it's sustainable financially, it's sustainable in terms of stress on the environment for water. This ought to be a guiding principle. We get in trouble when we're trapped in patterns that are not sustainable. It seems like a fundamental principle, but it's surprising that it takes people a little time to focus on it, that in some areas it has been so difficult and that it takes so long. But we're going to get there eventually, because ultimately there is no alternative.